Yeah, I would say when it comes to like giving at church, I think my earliest example was probably my dad, and it was it was always like they passed the plate at church, and then my dad would always put like $100 in it. And at the time, I was like, wow, like my dad is crazy generous. Like he gives $100 every time, and everybody else just gives a couple bucks. And then I realized later down the road, I was like, man, like $400. What's 10% of that?
Back when I was like in college or high school, had my first job, and in college, and then even up until we've been married 10 years, it's been kind of a temptation and struggle throughout our marriage. And I've really looked to Brian for leadership in that. I always just thought, oh, I'm giving out of my income, I'm giving to my friends, I'm buying them this, or I'm giving to my students, I'm spending this money on their supplies or whatever I need for my classroom or whatever, anything. Whatever it was, like I just always rationalized, oh, I don't really need to give to the church because I'm pouring into other people, which I don't think is wrong. But if we're talking about the spiritual discipline of giving to your local church, I think that's where Brian's really come in strong in our marriage to say, hey, we're giving 10%. I don't care what the rest of the month looks like. If we save money, if we don't save money, we're going to give our 10% first.
Throughout my early 20s and kind of getting my life, back on track with God, like, I knew things that I needed to get out of my life. And then I knew that like giving was one that the Bible, it's actually the only time God challenges you to do something. And I said, if he's going to challenge me to do this, then I want to be able to trust him. And I think that really giving shows your trust, because it's hard to let go of something that you work for. But then you have to realize if God didn't give you the energy and the ability and the help to do it, it wouldn't even be possible. Even when I was just waiting tables, like that night out of tips, I would just go ahead and set it aside, because if you don't set it aside, realistically, there's a human nature and temptation to spend it or to justify putting it.
Justify doing something else with it. It's like the first fruits of what you make. If you don't just do it, you're not gonna do it. You're not gonna retroactively do it and make up for all this money that. I mean, even if you can give like $10 a month, whatever. In a year, you're not going to just be like, oh, let me just write a check for $120. No, that's too much money. So I think I used to do that, and I've just really appreciated Brian's stance on we're doing this, and I've come in line with that, and I think God has just really blessed us with just feeling a sense of freedom.
Yeah, I think it's just a peace. A few years ago, we kind of overextended ourselves a little bit, and that was the first time since I was I guess in my early 20s where I was super stressed out about money. I looked at it and it was keeping me up at night. And but the whole time, it's a true story, like we were still giving during that time. And wouldn't you know it, maybe it was like November or something like that. And with my job, like we only had, a very small amount that we had to close to get like our bonus for hitting quota, and we hit quota. And I got the biggest check I've ever gotten in my entire life. Right after I was completely sweating and my finances.
And we're in the middle of a home renovation.
In the middle of a home renovation, exactly. So like, I'm not saying it always works out like that, but like God really came through in a time where like we really needed him. I would say for people that are struggling, I would say take his word and just take a step towards him and see what he does. I don't think it negates like hard work and being methodical and thoughtful. I don't think God is always magically just gonna like give you stuff just because you pray to him. I think it's working hard, taking a step in the right direction, and like believing in faith that when you do stuff, he's gonna meet you.
And I think if your heart is in a place, in a posture where you desire to be generous to the church, then you just have the first step would probably be pray about it. If your heart is there, then God is compelled, the Holy Spirit is compelling you to think about this, to meditate on this, to pray through this, and then perhaps seek some wise counsel from a friend who is a Christian or somebody else in your church to say like, hey, help me think through this. Even if you're in a tough financial situation, bouncing that idea off of somebody else, how should I even start? I think that it can be a really practical start. I think sometimes we make these things to be really big in our heads when it could just be a simple as like, bring $5 to the table.
Or $8.
or $1. It doesn't have to be these, like, if you're an all or nothing person like me, it's like, oh, I'm just gonna give this gigantic, enormous gift when
I'm gonna sell it all.
yeah, sell it all and give it all to the church. No, it can be a simple, practical step that just becomes a rhythm and a way of life. We talk a lot at church about like the rule of life, and this is just, you just take a baby step. So with prayer and consideration from friends or family members or church members on how to start, I think the start can be really simple.